Hey y'all, welcome to the T-Work podcast, hosted by Grant Banko and me, Adam Moreau. From entrepreneurs and athletes to the rat racers of corporate America and those who refuse to be put in a box, we want to share their stories and understand how they ended up where they are. Success and development come in many shapes and sizes. We want to hear about it all. So grab a drink and pull up a seat. Let's spill some tea and get to it. Welcome back to the T-Work podcast. Joining Grant and I today is Carrington Roberts, formerly Carrington Kilbro of St. Pete, Florida. We've known Carrington for a bit now due to one of our good buddies, Kendall, who Banko and I went to college with. But Carrington blessed our lives. I don't know, coming out of COVID a little bit. We knew our boy was settling down when he brought Carrington our way. And we've had the pleasure of getting to know her over the years. Carrington is, again, a St. Pete native, FSU grad, tried her hand in the corporate world with a sales job, spent some time in Atlanta, really crushed it there, but felt the passion to pursue yoga and do her own thing. So she is now the owner, operator, founder of SunState Yoga in St. Pete, Florida. This will be really exciting to hear a little bit more about her story and I guess have a serious conversation, much like our episode with some of our other buddies. It's weird to actually pull the curtain back and have real heart-to-heart conversations as opposed to making fun of them for what they did last weekend. So Carrington, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I'm excited to chat with you guys.
For sure. So, and I know Banko is one of your newest students at the studio, correct?
I've been very proud. He's been a Monday night regular, and it seems like we were just talking yesterday about how he does meditation. So I feel like yoga was a natural progression of that. And I've been impressed with his progress over the weeks.
Great.
Well, I appreciate that. You didn't even mention my lack of flexibility at all and being the most inflexible person ever.
That's
Hey,
what I was about
everyone
to
has
ask.
to start somewhere. Most people who don't come to yoga, they're like, oh, I'm not flexible enough to do yoga. And I always say, you would never say I'm too dirty to take a shower, right? Like that's the point. That's why you shower, is because you're dirty, right? So if you're trying to say like, I'm not going to do yoga because I'm not flexible enough, it's like, well, no. Like that's why you do yoga. So.
Well, I already know what Banko is clipping for our first social media release from
Perfect.
this one.
Yeah.
But I
We
mean,
might be able to
that's
end right
a
there,
really good
honestly.
analogy.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I was fully prepared to just make fun of Banko for his inability to put his hands above his head.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell that he's very committed to his other forms of exercise. And that's the only reason why. I mean, sure, there's maybe some room for improvement on the flexibility front. But Kendall even told me when you came to your first class, he was like, yeah, Banko's the type of guy who he commits to something. If he's going to do it, he's not going to just do it halfway. He's going to really commit to it. I was like, all right, I love to see that.
Banko, care to comment?
No, just that. Can we stop doing as much shoulders so my shoulders get a break in one of these classes?
You need it.
You're not wrong, but yeah, there's many times where certain explicit words are ready to come out, and I hold myself back during the class.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Put this boy in
That's
some
fair.
pigeon ASAP.
Yeah.
No, I don't
Don't
even do
worry.
pigeon.
We
I
cover
put the
that.
foot on the wall. Foot on the wall. I got the option for the foot on the wall. I don't do pigeon.
That's
We'll
okay.
get there.
He does reclined pigeon, which is just as beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Just as
That's
beneficial.
what they want you to think, Banko.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, I guess we're just going in on me today. That's fine. I'm gonna move it to a serious topic.
Please do.
I mean, Carrington, I guess we have some of your background. Obviously, you came into our lives later on in our late 20s through Kendall and our friend. I guess just can you add more to like sort of your growing up in St. Pete, like how you got to where you are today?
Totally. Yeah. So growing up here in St. Pete, I would say that yoga was far from my radar. I was also an athlete. I played volleyball my whole life. I'll never forget my friend dragging me to my first yoga class when I was like 16 years old. Her mom was teaching yoga. It was a hot yoga class. I walked in, they were saying all these words like chaturanga, and I was like, I don't know what that means. And I think I tried to keep up for the first 10 minutes and then spent the rest of the class just like sitting on my mat, sitting straight up, like crisscross applesauce, just watching everyone else do their thing and just be like, yeah, I'm over this. I don't want to do this anymore. This is not my thing. And so I kind of just like wrote off yoga for a long time. And then when I moved to Atlanta right after I graduated college, I moved up there without having any job lined up. You guys may remember, at that time when we were in St. Pete wasn't the youthful city that it is now. So I just remember thinking like, there's nothing here for me. There's no reason why I would stay in St. Pete. I wanted to go somewhere where people were really getting after it and where there were lots of job opportunities. And so I just picked Atlanta and was like, I'll figure it out when I get there. And so moved up there and immediately was grinding it out, trying to find a job. It even got to the point where I was like, I'll even just take a low-level job. I applied to be an ice cream scooper at Jenny's Ice Cream. I interviewed for a job to do retail at Lululemon. I applied for a job at a coffee shop and was turned down by all of these places. And I was like, I just couldn't believe that I had so much experience. I had a college degree. I was like, why is it so hard for me to just get a job? And I ended up finding yoga because I was so stressed out. And I did this intro special, and it was like 30 days of unlimited yoga. And I just went every day. And I just decided, like, if there's one thing that I can do to manage my stress, then I'm going to do it. And ended up falling in love with power yoga specifically. I loved how it challenged me. I loved how I felt sore the next day. And the people there were so kind, and they like really cared to get to know me. They wanted to know about my job search, like they'd ask me when I'd come in, like, how was your job interview yesterday? And so it was really the first place that I felt at home when I moved there. And then eventually I got my job it's like nothing was working, and then everything kind of fell into place. I had 3 job offers at great companies. I was looking for a job in marketing, and all 3 of these jobs wound up being in sales, and I was not looking for a job in sales. But this one company, the CEO met with me and he was like, listen, I get it. Sales has a certain, reputation, but based off of, the test assignments we've given you, based off of what we've talked about, I think that you would really do well and really enjoy a sales role here. And so I took that job, and yeah, that was like really the start of everything, because that company really encouraged me to keep pursuing my passions in all aspects of life. So when the opportunity to do a 200-hour yoga teacher training rolled around, I kind of tossed around the idea of it. And essentially my company was very supportive. They were like, if you think this is gonna help better you as a human and it's something you're really interested in, like, we think you should go for it. And so yeah, that was the summer of 2017, man. I just like made a lot of decisions, just kind of, I don't know, found myself at the right place at the right time. And all of those things are essentially what set me up for where I am now.
That's a super cool path. And I know we can dive in on you, and that might get tough to talk about yourself for however long we're on here today. But one thing that you even hit on right away that I want to comment on is the community around yoga. I know Banko and I doing yoga don't fit the typical mode because we turn it into extreme competition, like want to talk trash to each other and be better than one another at it. But
Yeah.
one of the things that I find so impressive, whether it is at SunState specifically or just in the yoga community in general, the culture around it is so supportive and welcoming. And I'm sure that had to help significantly when you felt lost in Atlanta?
Totally. And well, that would be, unfortunately, you don't see it at every yoga studio, but the studio I stumbled into in Atlanta, that was one of the first things that made me fall in love with it, was that the people were just so kind and just interested. And so when I started my 200-hour teacher training, I remember I came home that Christmas so excited to like jump into the yoga scene in St. Pete. You know, I had never been into yoga when I lived in St. Pete, so I knew nothing about it. So I was gearing up, getting ready to go to my first class at a studio here. And I just walked in and no one really cared that I was there. Like no one introduced themselves to me. No one asked me about just anything. They basically were just like, sign in, go in, be quiet until class starts. And that was really jarring. And I proceeded to take multiple classes at different studios all week long and saw some of the same teachers multiple times. And like, no one ever remembered who I was or asked about like, oh, am I in town visiting? Or I don't know, just like no one cared that I was there. I could be there or I could not be there, and they just didn't care. And so that was a huge catalyst for me in deciding like, maybe I should open up a studio here. Like, clearly there's nothing like what I'm getting in Atlanta down in St. Pete. And I love what I have in Atlanta. I can only imagine, you know, as St. Pete continues to grow, that it's going to keep, the yoga scene is going to keep growing. People are going to keep looking for studios, and, you know, that other people would like that sense of community as well. So I agree. I think that that's one of the most amazing aspects of our yoga studio, is just that sense of community.
I want to keep it on this for one more piece, and then Banko, I'll dish it off to you. But Carrington, just for the timeline's sake, when you came home to St. Pete and you were trying out those classes in those studios, you were still living in Atlanta, correct? That was just a
Yeah, I
visit
was
back
just
home.
visiting for the holidays. I was just home for Christmas. I was home for like 2 weeks.
Okay, so then what ultimately sparked the go back to St. Pete? This is it. I'm doing it.
Yeah, I struggled a lot actually in that time. I was under a lot of pressure at work. I had just turned 22, and the company I was at was a startup essentially. So I worked on the sales team, and the sales team was the CEO, his assistant, and me. And we had like just trained one other guy to be on our team. And you know, the CEO was trying to, you know, do what a good CEO does, which is like, he's trying to step away from being in the details of everything, and was really looking to me to try and like lead this sales team. And so I'm like leading this one guy. We just hired 2 other sales team members. And now all of a sudden I'm 22 and trying to be responsible for not just me, but 3 other people hitting all their sales numbers every month. And this was, I mean, this was a company where like the goals every month were high. It was not a walk in the park. Like, and so I just felt the pressure immensely. And I remember thinking like, why the hell am I doing this? Like, I am killing myself for something that I liked what I did, but it's like, I was selling marketing solutions to lawyers. Like, I was not passionate about like helping these like lawyers grow their law firms. Like, that was not what I felt my life's calling was. And I was obsessed with yoga, and I was like, I want to do more with this. And I really started to think about quitting my job and going all in on yoga. And so that was like December, January, where I really struggled, and I thought for sure I was going to quit. And then I was like, no, I'm going to hold out. I'm going to keep going. By March, it got worse. We were having some major growing pains at the company I was at. And I kind of cracked under pressure, and I was like, fuck this, I'm out. Like, I was like, this isn't what I want to do. And I spent like 3 months trying to do everything I could with yoga. but quickly learned that it is hard to make money just teaching yoga. And by some miracle, the company that I was at, I was still very close. I had a really like no burnt bridges, like only positive of parting ways. One of the CEO's assistant reached out to me and she was like, hey, we really need help getting our sales numbers back up just while we train some new people. Would you consider coming as an independent contractor for 1 month just to help us kind of get back on track? And it was just the right time because I just needed money. I was like, I could do that. And 1 month turned to 2 months, turned to another 1.5 years of me being there. And like that second time around, I just had a whole new mindset. And a lot of what I learned in that second half of being there is really what set me up to like know how to actually run a business. And I don't think I could have ever had the studio or been successful the way I am now if I hadn't gone back and really learned more at this company.
And Carrington, I'm seeing kind of a trend. I mean, we haven't gotten into you actually moving back to St. Pete yet, but we've talked about it last night. So obviously, we want to put that background into the podcast. But I mean, going back to you moving to Atlanta, no job lined up, you were interviewing, you kind of just took a chance and were like, this is where I want to be. And then a lot of people say, hey, I'm going to quit this job. I'm going to leave. Like, I'm going to leave. And then they're there for 5, 10 more years and they don't
Yeah.
quit. They do the same thing, but you actually
Are you
quit.
trying to say that I'm
So,
impulsive?
no, I'm not saying you're impulsive at all. I'm saying you're strong-willed and like a risk taker, which a lot of people don't have, and that's not natural for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if like that was something that you just felt you always had when you were born with, like growing up, or sort of taught to you, just sort of getting more into that.
Yeah, for sure. It's so funny that you say that because like on a personal level, Kendall's been making so much fun of me about that lately. I would absolutely say that I'm a strong-willed person, and I have always been someone who kind of like sets my mind on something and more or less like makes it happen. And so just like in our personal lives lately, within the past year, you know, you guys know Kendall, who's my husband, and he moves a lot slower than I do. He's a take his time kind of guy. He's a let's see how things unfold. Let's just like along for the ride. And I'm like, let's keep this train moving. Like, where are we going? Like, let's get it moved. And so just over the past year, I feel like I had been really thinking about the next steps for us and, you know, all the things that I wanted for us and, you know, to grow a family and whatnot. But he was very much so like, let's slow it down. Like, let's take our time. There's no rush. We have a plan. Everything's going to unfold over the next 2 to 3 years. And I just had to like really accept that when you're in a relationship, like you don't get to be in charge. And so I had really fully accepted like, okay, you're right, babe. Like, let's take this the slow and steady route. Like, I'm on board. This is what you want. I'm cool with it. And then January comes and we find out that I'm pregnant, and all of a sudden now we're married and having a baby in 1 year. And he was making fun of me because at one point when I was so sick and we didn't know that I was pregnant yet, I was worried about my solar plexus chakra. So chakra is an energetic system in your body that we study in yoga. And there are different energy points in your body, and they manage different aspects of both your physical and your emotional levels. So your solar plexus lives in your stomach, and it is what manages your will, like, right? Like your self-will, your confidence, your ability to like bring to life what you want to have happen. And so, of course, here I am, like pregnant, don't know it. I'm nauseous as hell. My stomach hurts. I feel awful. I'm like, Kendall, something's unhealed in my solar plexus chakra. My self-will isn't strong enough. Like, I can't will into existence what I want. And then he just, once we found out I was pregnant, he was like, don't ever try to tell me that your self-will isn't strong enough because you fully willed all of this into existence subconsciously. And I was like, okay, you might be right. I shouldn't underestimate how strong my self-will is when I set my mind to something. So
And I will add that you like there's some give and take from Kendall too. I mean, we went to dinner last night and he was on time. I was like, this is the first time you've been on time in your life.
hell yeah.
So that was a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he got a good deal in all of this happening. It's not like poor Kendall, you know. He quickly, once it all started happening, he was quick to get on board. You know, he didn't resist it at all. But sometimes he needs the little push.
Yeah, but that's why we love him.
That's why we love him. Yeah.
But Carrington, so yes, thank you. Thank you for the look into the personal life of the Roberts household. Very excited for that.
Yeah.
These are the offline conversations, but now everybody's involved in them. So this is really fun.
I'm such an open book, man. I like.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect. That's why these conversations flow so easily. But continuing on that path of the strong will in starting things, like Banko said, we haven't even officially made it back to St. Pete yet in this timeline. So now, what kicked you down back to us?
Yeah, so 2019 rolled around and I really kind of knew like, okay, this is the right timing. I felt like I had really put in the work in my yoga stuff and I just knew I was itching to get back home. And I told my company at the beginning of the year, like, hey, I'm moving home after we threw a huge conference in October every year. And I was working on a huge project through the end of it. And so I said, hey, after this, I'm moving home and I'm opening up a yoga studio. And so that whole year, I just really set the intention that like, yeah, this is something I'm doing. I told everyone, I like made announcements on social media. I told everyone who would listen, you know, and it's not like I had any physical evidence that this was going to work out. But I figured that the more people I told that I was going to do this, I was going to feel the pressure to actually do. Like I was going to want to follow through because otherwise that's embarrassing. Like I don't want to be someone who like says I'm going to do something and then doesn't do it. So I just really, and then the other advice I give to people, if there's something you want to do and put money on it, right? So I started investing in it. I paid someone to create a logo for me. I paid someone to help me come up with my brand guide. I, started looking into website. I mean, just like, I didn't wait to have it all figured out before I started doing things. I just started doing them. I found a space. I found some teachers. And it all just started unfolding really quickly. I wasn't sure. I kind of thought that maybe it was going to be like me moving to Atlanta where I'd move back home to St. Pete and it might take a little bit. But actually the exact opposite happened where before I even moved home from Atlanta, I had already signed a lease for a space. I had already hired some teachers. I'm working with my mom to help do the build out of the studio while I'm in Atlanta and she's in St. Pete. So yeah, once again, I just kind of willed it into existence and just said, like, we're doing it and just did it it's just one step at a time. We just started building it and opened in December of 2019. And something I'm really proud of is my brand guide where I like really wrote out what I wanted SunState Yoga to be. And 4 times a year, we have these all team meetings for all of our teachers, all of our team members, where I always like reread them. And they're still so true to this day, like what our mission is, why we exist. They're the exact things that we get compliments for every day of like why people love our studio. And so like me having that really, really clear vision of what I wanted before this even was a real thing has always been an anchoring point, something to always come back to.
Do you think that because me and Adam actually went to college in St. Pete, and there was yoga studios that we went to. And I actually was driving down 4th Street the other day, and I was looking for in the building where ours was. It's not there anymore.
Yeah.
So like you said, I mean, there's definitely plenty of yoga studios that have come and gone. And do you think that that branding guide has helped you sort of get through and continue to succeed?
Um, I think it's part of it. I think that there's a lot of aspects of the success of any business. I think, especially when we talk about a small business, the involvement of the owner is huge, right? A lot of small businesses, you see the owner is super involved, super excited, super engaged in the beginning. And then, like every business owner, eventually you kind of want to take a step away and have it not consume every second of every day of your life. Which is good. You should do that. But some people take it a little too far, and then they're just like not super involved in their business. And then you feel that, right? And then maybe someone else starts to take over and you hire some other managers, and then, how crystal clear are they holding on to your same vision? So yeah, I do think that that is a factor, but I wouldn't say that it's like the thing that keeps us. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like the one thing that has made us successful or keeps us in business, but I definitely think that it's important.
One
That makes
thing I want to call out, can I call something out?
Go ahead.
Okay. One thing I want to call out that I think is extremely impressive, I think it's a really good take home note, is you took strides to move your plan forward without necessarily knowing exactly what the end structure would look like. Like you said, you worked on a logo, you worked on branding, you did all these things to get the ball rolling before even knowing where your studio might be or whatever. I think that's incredibly impactful and worth noting that that's a great way to stay involved, gain momentum. There's no question in here. This is me applauding you for taking that on. I would say I've struggled with that historically. I mean, heck, even starting the podcast, Banko and I struggled with that a little bit. Yes, we were recording episodes, but it was then the work of editing them and getting them online and publishing them and then developing a schedule where we could continue to do interviews. So, however you develop that internal quality or personality trait that you're willing to take steps without having the ultimate destination painted out perfectly.
Yeah.
Good for you. I wish I had that earlier.
There's a few books that I read out of college that I think really helped me. There's one that I read like right when I was moving to Atlanta called Fail Fast, Fail Often. And it was just this idea that like, yeah, like you're not going to grow until you put yourself in positions to be bad at stuff. Like in yoga, we'll say like something cheesy, like you got to show up and suck before you can show up and shine. And it's true. Like, and so many people they'll never shine because they don't want to suck. And it's like, you gotta accept that if you want to do something new, you gotta, you're going to mess up. Like, and I made a lot of I made mistakes along the way, and I adjusted and edited and I don't know, there's just a lot of books. Another book that was really impactful for me is The Alchemist, which is like a super popular book. It's just a story, but this whole story is about how like you have to just kind of keep following where the road is leading you. You don't always know where it's going to take you, and it's the experiences that you have along the way that shape you and create the magic. It's not necessarily like this final destination. So I would give that advice to anyone that, don't wait until you know exactly what the end result's gonna look like. If you feel a passion, if you feel like excited or interested in something, like just start taking steps in that direction and see where it leads you. It might lead you nowhere, but it could lead you somewhere.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you
I
for
think that
letting me share.
No, you're good. That actually, you said it way better than I was gonna. I was just gonna relate it back to her basically taking the chances of going to Atlanta and then quitting her job. Like she didn't know what was gonna happen when she moved to Atlanta. So like it's just another trend. But I have read The Alchemist, so I am familiar with that book, and I think it actually probably relates a lot to Adam's experience in finding Flex Pro Grip. I mean, out of college, you're like, I just want to be in baseball. I want to play baseball, coach baseball. Maybe I'll do training. And you just kept shifting. You were moving forward. Like you said, we weren't good at it. Like, yes, we were slow, but it was a 6 month period where a lot of people take 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, I think a big takeaway from like the Alchemist and like you, Carrington, and you as well, Adam, is you might get an experience or an exposure to some person because you took a small step some way. It might not even make any sense. But
Yeah.
then for like Adam, he found the Flex Pro Grip device because of connections he made over time and sort of built that business around that. And like that was not your plan at all. And same with you, Carrington. I mean, you were in sales, you're in Atlanta, you hated yoga in high school. I'm actually curious how did you get back to yoga? Like you were just like, I went to a
Yeah,
yoga
I
studio
was
again.
just
How did,
stressed.
like, did
That's
a friend
it,
take you
man.
or you were just like yoga?
Stress will make you do some crazy things, like sit and breathe in a room for an hour with people. Like, yeah, I mean, that's it. It was nothing more than I just was really freaking stressed and someone said you should do yoga. And I was like, all right, I'm willing to try anything at this point.
Yeah, and I suppose 22-year-old you're mature enough to recognize that's different from 16-year-old you.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was just the right place, the right time. The vibe of the studio I was in was much more catered to just like being young and active. I loved how challenging it was. I think it was just a culmination of right place, right time. I'm so full of these random little like quips that we say in yoga. But there's a saying that like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I'm sure you guys have heard that. It's like you can hear something a million times in your life, but if you're not ready to hear it, you're like, it's not going to process, it's not going to resonate with you. But at just the right moment, when you're ready to learn that lesson, like the teacher's going to be there. You're going to learn the lesson when you're ready to learn it.
Yeah, I think we probably experience that constantly in the baseball world. It's how many times can you be told the exact same thing about the way you should swing, the way you should throw, the way you should run. And then
Totally.
for some reason, your dad might have told you that when you were 8 years old, but it registers finally when you're a sophomore in college
Yeah,
or something
no,
like that.
totally.
Carrington, I might clip that quote for you. So in about 10 to 15 years, when you got a teenager on you and you and Kendall are like, "What's going on?" I'm just gonna send you that clip over and
Yeah,
over again.
that's perfect. That's perfect.
Well,
Yeah, it's interesting how yoga actually, so many of the teachings of yoga are so perfect for the balance of being an entrepreneur. So like I'm kind of constantly at odds with these two polarities, like these two different sides of me. Grant, you were saying about like, oh, do you think like having a brand guide is what makes you successful? I think what makes me successful is that I'm freaking obsessed and paranoid about failing. Like I'm never just like okay with the level of success that we have. Like I am obsessed with like, how are we doing better? Like, are we growing? Our numbers, X number times better than they were this time last, like, and an average person could look at me and be like, Carrington, like you guys have been profitable every month since you've like, you guys have like, your classes are full and your teachers are like, can you not just be happy with where you're at? And there's like this like subtle obsession with like, no, it has to always be better, which I think is, I always feel like we're not doing good enough, which drives me to always be working my ass off and to be doing better, which I think does make us successful. But I have to use my yoga a lot to balance that, because that can be a very unhealthy state to live in for long periods of time. Right? Like it's not good to always think that you're not enough or that you're not doing enough. And you shouldn't always be afraid of failing or, looking bad or whatnot. And so it's like these two parts of me that coexist at the same time. And it's just like, who am I going to listen to today?
So how many times have you told us in class, be proud of yourself for showing up on your mat?
Totally.
You are enough, all these awesome positive things when the second the class ends, you're immediately flipping back to
Yeah.
I I don't know, we're not selling enough of this specific membership. We don't have full enrollment in this
Yeah.
class yet. How
Yeah.
often is that happening to you?
Well, you teach, like I only really teach things that I have the personal experience of, right? So when I say that to you, it's because I needed to hear that, right? It's not because I'm like, preaching from some higher and mightier place, like where it's like, oh, I have this all figured out and let me bestow this wisdom upon you who doesn't know. Like, no, like I'm saying this shit to you because I was just journaling about this morning about how I need to be more flexible or more accepting or yeah, like I am doing enough. Like the work that I'm putting in is enough and I have to let it go. So yeah, no, for sure. Like I teach what I'm going through. And it's not because I am the master and knower of all, but it's because like I have a personal relationship to the struggle. Like I know because I'm doing it and I'm in the work with you guys. Which I think is like, I don't know, not to toot my own horn as a yoga teacher, but I was telling Grant last night that like to be a powerful yoga teacher, you have to be really authentic and really own who you are as a person and really know who you are as a person. And I think a lot of the ways in which that I do not claim to have it all figured out and I'm in it with you guys and whatnot. Like I think that people can really appreciate that.
When did you realize that teaching yoga was somewhat of a self-therapy for yourself?
I mean, as soon as I got really into yoga, I knew that it was life-changing. Which is what made me want to do my teacher training. And then the very first night of my yoga, I like went into it thinking like, I'm probably not going to teach yoga. This has changed my mindset on so many things. It's helped me through so many things. I just want to know more about yoga. And so, but my first night of teacher training, you do like a little round of practice teaching. And I just remember thinking like, oh shit, like I'm going to do this forever. Like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that looks like. But like, I think I was like meant to do this. Like I will be teaching yoga forever. I immediately knew that I loved it. And there's certain, I would say like, okay, self-therapy. I would say that like in the beginning, I really wanted to know and understand it all and be like the wise yoga teacher that I had seen. And I wanted to know all the things, but it's like the more that you learn, the more humbled you are. The more you realize like, I don't know anything, like I'm just out here doing my best. So it's an ever evolving journey teaching yoga and you never really like make it. You're always growing, your perspective's always changing as life changes, my teaching changes. I think it'll always just be an expression and a reflection of wherever I am in my life at the time.
I think the juxtaposition of that answer was perfect. If we look over your right shoulder and see the find strength and surrender sign right
Yeah,
behind you,
well,
you
exactly.
nailed that. I was trying to read the sign earlier and I finally picked it up while you were answering that. So
There
perfect.
you go.
That's truly being your authentic self. That's living your mission. Good for you.
Exactly. Exactly.
I just wanted to call that out, Banko. There's no question there. So go
Okay,
ahead.
I thought you were going. I was gonna let you
Nope.
go.
No, that was it.
Okay.
I just
All
shout
right.
out Carrington. That was it.
I mean, we're giving her a lot of praise, and we're not giving her that much of a hard time, and it's
You
kind
can
of
give
weird
me
for me.
shit for
But
something.
Yeah, what do we
no,
want to talk trash
no,
about?
I don't have anything. I was actually going to give you another compliment. Going back to you talking about the small business owners and being there every day, being involved. I mean, I've gone to 3-4 classes now. I mean, every day, like I hadn't seen you in 2-3 years, I think, when I
Yeah.
walked in, and it was like, hey, how are you? Like, what's going on in your life? Like, welcome back to St. Pete. Like, you're at the front desk every time I'm in there. I mean, you're pregnant, everything's going on in your life, and you're there smiling, having conversations, engaging with every single person that's walking in before the class. And then after the class, you're going right back out into that lobby area. You're having conversations, follow up conversations. And it's not business, it's just like what's going on with your life. And like you're
Yeah.
actually engaging, which you don't see a lot. So just a compliment to you.
Yeah. I mean, I just genuinely love, I mean, that's the best part about owning the studio is I just like love the connections that I get to have with people. It's kind of like how you guys were saying how you love this podcast because people who you've known forever, you get a chance to actually talk to them and learn more about them. And that's always my goal with my students. Like the better that I know them, the better I can hold space for them and whatever they're going through. And, you know, and I enjoy knowing the people in the classes. I enjoy knowing the people in our community. And I'm a curious person. Like I want to know what you did today. And I want to know about, what you got going on this weekend. And I want to know about how that thing went that you were doing. And yeah, like it's not a business. Yeah, it's not like a business thing. It's just a general, like I'm just interested. And I love having those connections with people. It's what makes, sometimes I'm really tired when I come in the door. Like sometimes I don't want to be here. But then as soon as I get talking to these people, I'm like, wow, like I actually really love you guys. Like I love doing this and I love being with you guys. And I love watching you guys do your practice and getting to be a part of it and be a part of your day and be a part of your week. It's like, it's very humbling and uh, it's just very fulfilling. It's what I really love that aspect of what I do.
Banko, I think I have a way to challenge her. I'm feeling good about it.
Well,
Okay.
hold on. I do want to ask one question first.
Okay.
And it helps a little bit. How long did it take you to get Kendall to actually come to his first yoga class?
Not long at all. I was so impressed when we first started dating, like within the first week after our first date. I mean, he knew, like, we started dating the year I opened the studio. So we hadn't even like celebrated our 1 year anniversary yet. Like, if you think that the studio is my life now, it was really my life then. I mean, I was here crazy hours every single day. He quickly realized, like, hey, if I like this girl and I want to spend any kind of time with her, I need to get in there. And so he took a class within the first like week or two that went out. Sometimes I laugh because when we first started dating, he would like help out around the studio. He would like help me with like cleaning the blocks after class and like stick around to like take out the trash, like do all that kind of stuff. And now he's like,
Never.
he helps me carry heavy things to and from the studio. Like whenever we get packages for the studio, he'll help me carry them in, but he's not cleaning. He's not wiping down blocks, mopping floors the way he did when he was first courting me.
Banko, you kind of led me in the direction that I wanted to go anyways, or Carrington at least got there. It has nothing to do with Kendall. Well, maybe it does. That's up to you to decide. But I wanted to know either the first time or a big moment that you feel like you missed out on because you were so heavily involved with the studio. You let
Oh my
your
gosh. Okay.
entrepreneurial venture take over and prevent you from experiencing something in your personal life. And then what was that aha moment like where you realized like, okay, no, like this is my livelihood, but I also need to live my life.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say just in general, you guys are athletes, so like I remember being in high school and missing out on like there's like this one party that my friends always talk about where like something big happened at the party, but I wasn't there because I was at a volleyball tournament, and it's like ah, when you are an athlete or you're a business, like when you're really committed to something, you kind of learn what it's like to miss out on something. You don't have the free time to always be at every party, to be at every event, because you made a commitment. So I would say that plenty of times that has happened where I've had to be at the studio for a workshop or a teacher training weekend. I mean, I've missed people's weddings because I'm leading a teacher training. I've missed plenty of things because of my business. I would say that I don't have any regrets. Like, I've never missed anything that I am so like deeply regretful about. I have made ways to work around it. Like, I have taught yoga on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day almost every year since we opened the studio. It means that my Christmas traditions look different than they used to growing up, right? Like, I used to do Christmas Day breakfast with my whole family. But now I teach yoga at 9:30 a.m. every day, every year on Christmas Day. So I push it back a little bit. And now my family will sometimes come with me and they'll take the yoga class. And now we've changed it a little bit. And now it's breakfast after yoga. And so just like little things like that, like what's really important, we find a way to make happen, and anything else that I can't make happen is just kind of, it just kind of accepts it. It'll be very interesting with the baby coming along. I'm in this big phase right now of learning how to, how can I get out of the business a little bit more while still having my presence really felt and really be around, learning like, what are the things that I don't need to be doing that. There's someone else at the studio who could be doing that. And so the next year will be very, 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 very interesting to see. But like, for example, like I planned a yoga retreat to Bali in March 2025. We're completely sold out. There's a whole group of people who are so stoked to come. And then we find out that I'm pregnant and I'm going to have a baby, and, baby's just going to come with us to Bali. That's it. It's like, you just make your life work around what you've got going on. So
That'll be an awesome trip for that baby. That's
she's
some serious international
getting
travel.
stamps on her passport early.
For
Well,
real.
I was giving them a hard time last night because I was like, "You're gonna make all these trips, and the baby's gonna be 10 years from now." I'm like, "I never went to Bali. That's not real. I don't remember it."
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's we're super, super excited. I think it'll be a really neat experience. Yeah, I mean, she won't remember it, but there'll be pictures.
So I have something I want to get into more. You talked about how can you step away but still have your presence felt. That's certainly something that I've dealt with, struggled with, continue to try to get creative with in Flex Pro Grip.
Yeah.
I don't want my face, brand name, like personal Adam Morrow, to be so linked with Flex Pro Grip that every time somebody calls or emails, they expect to hear from me. Same with Daryl, same with Gavin. It's why we try to share duties, share who is interfacing with individuals, because the danger when you're so tied to a brand is you are seen as the expert. I know people that tend to name things after themselves, or over time they grow to regret it, because then everybody else is viewed as lesser or not as knowing as that individual. So
Yeah.
have you thought about ways, even if you want to have some creative brainstorming on here, where you think you might go down a certain path to have your presence felt but not leave the studio in the dust?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, a lot of it is about hiring people who have been around for a long time and who really share my same vision. I think there's no presence felt like just being there, right? So, even if I'm giving up, right? Like, let's say down the line, I give up, someone else is doing social media, someone else can run, I train someone else to do all of our sales, our marketing. They can do all that stuff. But like, if I can still be here teaching classes, or if I can still be leading 200-hour teacher trainings every year at the studio, you still see me showing up at events, right? That's the kind of stuff where it's like, okay, that doesn't have to be my whole life. That could look like 3 hours a week, which is so small. But that would still allow my presence to be really felt. without it needing to be my whole life. So, but yeah, I mean, it's certainly tough. I have never wanted to be a multi-studio franchise because I really just believe in exactly the vision and description that I just said. Like, I always want my presence to be felt, and I always want to be around, and I'm happy kind of keeping the studio just where it is. And I just want it to be really magical for what it is, rather than making it this like huge conglomerate, like, you know, franchise yoga thing where it becomes stale. And I just, that's not my vision for what I want to do with my career. I'm happy with where the studio's at, and I'll keep doing it. And if ever one day it doesn't make sense for me to do it anymore, then I'll stop doing it and I'll do something else. But I don't have like a grand master plan yet. As on trend with everything else that you have seen so far in my life, I'm just gonna wing it and we'll figure it out as we go.
Whatever it is you get into, you'll certainly be all in on it though.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've really liked the idea of doing like some sort of consulting. I love I actually really am passionate about like sales and things like that, and working with sales teams. And I don't know, I like maybe someday that's something that I would dive back into. So who knows?
How long did it take you to become comfortable with not, because knowing the two sides of your personality, the not building a conglomerate, not having multiple studios, that doesn't fit the go,
Yeah.
go, go side of you. So how long,
Yeah.
or was it always that way, like when you started the studio?
When I started the studio, I think I was more of the mindset of like, yeah, let me like have my, 3-year plan, 5-year strategy, 10-year, whatever. I'm gonna make $1 million by this time, like, and then I still want this space to be as good as it ever and I'm so competitive, right? Like, I want this to be like the best studio in St. Pete, like better than anything else. And like, I just wanted to succeed, but I just, I did know from the beginning that I didn't want to own multiple studios, because I watched a mentor of mine open and run like 4 different yoga studios, and whichever one she wasn't at would fail. And I just never wanted that. Like, I never wanted to be so, like, I don't want to call it greedy, because it's not greedy. It's, you're just trying to like grow your business, and growing your business is never greedy. But like, for me, I knew that just one studio wasn't, I didn't want it to be like I needed to keep proving, that I could keep doing more and bigger. I just wanted it to be the best that it possibly could be at this level. So I think just watching, I just care about the studio so much, like on a personal level. I love it. So, like, it is my baby. It is so meaningful to me that the health of this studio is more important to me than, you know, racking up the achievement awards for, becoming a franchise or whatnot.
I promise you I understand. That's I feel like it's really hard to deal with as an entrepreneur when you feel an emotional attachment to
Yeah.
your business. You right?
Yeah.
I feel like this is one of my children.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. It is. It's my first child.
Yeah, I mean, think about how many, going back to the conversation we had earlier, how many of your life events SunState has been a part of. I think about that with Flex Pro Grip. Like this past year on my birthday, I had a meeting at Virginia Tech. Right. And that's how I spent my 30th birthday. I was at Virginia Tech in their pitching lab, getting them set for the season with their incoming freshmen. And it was awesome. I really don't know if I could think of a better 30th birthday. But like, so yeah, there's stuff you miss out on, but there's also so many milestones that just become extremely important parts of your life. And
Totally.
entrepreneurship offers that, like, yes, a lot of sacrifice, but so much opportunity to have these incredible milestones because you can look back at it and say, like, I created that, or like, this is me. That is an extension of me. So
Yeah,
yeah, like we can say all these things, and depending on what tone we put on them, they can sound negative or positive. So then it's just kind of on the individual to understand what these things mean and how they impact you. At least that's my take on it.
absolutely. I completely agree.
And I think you put it a good way of like, even though talking about like growing the business, it's never greedy in the sense of if you do think of it as your child, your baby, like what wouldn't you do for your kid? So like if that's growing it, like it's not really greedy. It's really like you want the best for your kid, which is your business, which is a good
Totally.
way to think about it.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Banko, sorry. You go, Carrington. You're way more important than me asking Banko a question.
I was just gonna say that it's an interesting, it's just always a balance of, you know, loving and accepting where you are and also growing to where you want to go. There was a book that my boss gave me, and it was all about how, like, you don't want to spend too much time looking back at where you came from, but it is important to take a peek back and see, like, acknowledge, like, hey, I've actually come quite a far way. And you don't want to become too obsessed with looking forward and seeing how much further you have to go, because otherwise you'll feel hopeless and like there's no way you could ever get there. But you do want to have something to look forward to, like something that you're reaching towards. And so it's this balance of like always acknowledging how far you've come, always having something to look forward to grow towards, but also always being like really, really happy and content and present with where you are. And it's a balance.
And you said this is a book. What's it called?
Um,
Sorry to put you on the spot, but now I'm
no,
super
it's okay.
intrigued.
It's from Strategic Coach. It was a little booklet. And it was called, I like said it, and then as I was talking, I was like, I don't remember the name of the book.
That's okay. Strategic coach booklet. We'll figure it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, it was just that was the point of the book. You don't need to read it. That was the point.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it's one of those where it's like a really cool message that ties you in, but the problem is they can't turn that really cool message into a 150-page read. So it just gets
Yeah,
overextended.
when it comes to books, like I'm so ADD. I might be reading like 4 books at one time. I'll pick one up, read like 4 pages and then put it down. And then the next day I'm like, oh, I want to read this book instead. I'll pick it up, read a few pages. And I used to actually like think that it was like meant something really bad about me that I would start books all the time that I just never finished. I probably have a dozen books on my bookshelf that I've started, but just halfway through, I kind of was like, oh, I kind of feel like I got the gist of this book. I don't really need to finish it. And I used to like really beat myself up. Like, what does that mean about me as a person? Like, can I not finish things? Can I not follow through on what I start? And now I just kind of don't give a shit. Like, I was over it. I got whatever lesson I must have needed to get from that book from the first 100 pages. And then, if I ever feel compelled to pick it back up again, then right, maybe the student is then ready to hear the other half of the book and the teacher will appear. And so now I just don't beat myself up about it anymore.
I think that's a better mentality to have than I have, where I have to finish a book.
Yeah.
And I think it relates back to you taking small actions. Like you can read all the books in the world, but if you're not actually implementing what the book is saying, it's kind of pointless. And if you're
Yeah.
not getting anything out of it other than just saying, check a box, I read a book, you're not
Yeah.
really getting anything out of it.
Yeah. True. I had never thought of it that way, but yeah.
That's what we're here for. Just provide the positive feedback from the negative in our lives.
Yeah. I love it. That's perfect.
Carrington, I know we're nearing the end of how much time you have with us. So I want to ask you something a little more open-ended. What's
Okay.
something you're really excited about coming down the line? And I'm going to throw it out there. You're not allowed to talk about the birth of your child.
That I think that's totally fair. Um, I mean, I'm really looking forward to going back to Bali. It is a really magical place that I just fell in love with last time I went. So I'm so excited to be leading a yoga retreat there in 2025 and bringing an amazing group of people with me. The other thing that I will say that like sort of has to do with the birth of my child, but
That's okay.
I am really looking forward to the wisdom that I'm going to gain through the next few years, right? Like it's going to be really challenging, but like I'm excited to take that wisdom that you can only have through having a lived experience and translating that into my teaching. I think I'm going to be a better teacher. I think I'm going to be better at leading my yoga teacher trainings. I think that I hope I'll be a better boss, right? I hope that I'll become more essential and be like more dialed in on like what needs to happen, have more dialed in processes, just, all the little things set in place. And so, yeah, it's like has to do with my business, but yeah, I think going through this transition from maiden to motherhood I'm excited for whatever wisdom I gain from it. I cheated a little, but
No, that was a cool perspective on it.
yeah.
Because of course there's like I'm just so excited to have a new child bring new
Yeah.
life into this world. But no, I like that you were able to turn it and put it back on yourself for what you are going to gain from this experience. Because that's to me that's like the theme of being a lifelong learner and from the worlds that we're used to being a coach, right? The phrase is teacher in the yoga world, or at least to my
Yeah.
knowledge it is, but that's the best coaches are the ones, like you said, that can incorporate their own life experience. They're only speaking when it is authentic. It doesn't mean that they necessarily had to have competed at the highest level or done the craziest thing, but being able to share that firsthand perspective provides an ability to relate to a student, player, coworker, employee, subordinate, whatever phrase of whatever industry. I think the way you phrased it and the experience that you think you're going to gain from this is very powerful. It's unique. So good for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was a good close, Adam. I do have one more question for you, Carrington.
Shoot.
Someone listening to this podcast, never done yoga, doesn't know what yoga is, has no idea even how to get started. They're afraid to get started. What would you convey to that person trying to get into yoga or get that exposure to yoga?
Yeah, I mean, I would say do some YouTube videos. Especially if you're really nervous about like going somewhere, you can't go wrong with just like YouTubing yoga flow and learning some poses and being guided through some poses. If you're willing to show up and suck before you can show up and shine, go to a studio, like find a studio near you, take a class, and you will catch on. You will learn. Like, you don't need to know every pose in order to take a class. You don't need to know what all the poses are called. You don't need to know how to do everything. Like, you can just take a class and you will learn. The teachers will teach you. It will literally change your life.
Can
That's
I
all.
share something
Yeah.
about yoga? This is from my perspective as a growing student.
Mhm.
And I think some of it is my growth in like just my own mentality. But when Banko and I started yoga, it was all about the competition. Who could be better? Who could stretch deeper? Who could do all these things? One of the things that I enjoy about yoga is I think it's a cop out to say it's all about flexibility, because if you go in a class and you really want to put on that competition hat like I do or like Banko does, although it is certainly not the way to go about it. I'm speaking from this from the macho non-yoga perspective, but those who those who are good or excel in one specific area, there's somebody else with a completely different body type or skill set
Right.
that dominates in other areas. Like you can be crazy strong and you can crush your balance, or you can be the bendy person, or you can be really good when your feet are above your head. Like that's what I the experiences that I enjoy from yoga personally, I would say is I like that it both highlights my weaknesses so I know what I need to work on, but then there's going to be a time during that hour flow where I have the utmost confidence because I feel like I'm absolutely crushing it. So
Yeah,
I like that dichotomy during a practice.
totally. And that would be like, like if you were to do like a power flow, super well round, it's a super well-rounded practice. Um, and I do love that about the power flow is like, if you are gonna like look at the people next to you, we do all levels classes. And it can be so inspiring to see someone next to you just like do a pose that you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that a body could do that. And then you're inspired and you're like, maybe I could try that. Like, could my body do that? And then you're like, huh, like let me see. And you kind of try to like do it and maybe you don't get it the first time, but now you're getting ideas. And then even like, sometimes I'm taking class and there's someone brand new and they're struggling. And it is just like humbling to remember, like, there was a time when I struggled like that too. And like, you know, not every day do I need to be on 100%, like there are some days where, you know, just showing up and going through the motions is enough. So I do love that perspective, although yoga is not a competition and I would not encourage you to try and compete with the person next to you.
I will say, I'll add to Adam's is it's humbling. I go to the gym every day. I lift weights. You could lift weights. You could do every single standard strength exercise. I don't get a better shoulder workout than when I'm in yoga. So my shoulders are on fire. I will take breaks. I will get in child's pose when I need a break, even though I go to the gym every day. So it is
Hell yeah.
very humbling.
Yeah, it's just so different. I think my core is stronger than it's ever been from doing yoga. Um, it's a total body workout and a total work in, right? Like working the brain, the emotions, like everything you deal with on the mat is just a reflection of everything you're dealing with outside. So the mat is a perfect place to practice.
Well, thank you, Carrington. I'd say the inspirational exit's probably the best way to handle this, and we've already extended a little past the time that we thought we would have you for. So we, again, really appreciate you coming on and look forward to chatting again in the future. Just so you know, you will have to come back on at some point. Just
Fine.
it's mandatory.
I'm happy to. It's been a pleasure, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrington, and I hope you have a great day.
I hope you have a great day.
But nobody hopes I have a great day.
No, because you
No.
weren't there and it was an inside joke.
Okay, well then you better cut this part, Banko. Bye,
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah. Hi, everyone. Grant here. Thanks for tuning into the show. If you could like, share, and subscribe, we'd greatly appreciate it. Also, if you think you or someone you know has a good life story to tell, we are always open to guest suggestions. You can send those suggestions to our email, tworkpod@gmail.com. Thanks again for the support.